All right, got Ron Lang here on the line. Mr. Lang, do I have your permission to record our conversation today?
You sure do.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so I'm going to get started with a few questions here for you that we had. If there's a awkward pause or my voice cracks like Peter Brady's in that Brady Bunch episode, it's pretty much because I'm in awe of being able to talk to someone like you here. So now that I got that out on the table, let's get started. For those who knew and competed against you, you were revered for your defensive prowess, mental toughness, and physical stamina that was second to none. You are often described by competitors as relentless, intimidating, and merciless to all comers. Is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, I'd say it is. I was fortunate enough. The guys that taught me how to play volleyball, how I learned to play volleyball, I was pretty lucky. I started going to the beach in probably 1954, 1955 when I was 16. And we used to go down there to surf. And that summer, there were so many jellyfish in the water we couldn't surf. So we looked around, there's some guys playing volleyball. So we went over and watched, and we started going down there to play. Well, I happened to get to know two guys that played there all the time. And these guys was a guy named Harry Cohen and Richie Cooper. And they were on Hollywood YMCA, which was a famous indoor team in the 60s and 70s and 50s. They played for their second team. They weren't good enough to start on their first team, but they played on their second team. And these guys were relentless. They, you can hurry up, get to that ball, use your hands. Don't do this, don't do that. It got so that I hated to play with them because they drove me so much. But they did teach me how to play the game correctly. So as I progressed as a player, I played more and more and more. And one of your questions you asked if Ron and I played one for a year and a half without losing a game. We went for 2.5 years and lost less than 21 games. So we played all the time. During all that time, when I was playing all the time, I played at night too. I played short court doubles. I played indoors, and as a matter of fact, in one stretch, there was a gym on Monday night to go to, a gym on Tuesday and Thursday night to go to, a gym on Wednesday night to go to. So I ended up playing during the summertime. I played all day, from 1 o'clock until 6 or 7, and then I played 2 or 3 hours at night. So it's like if you're earning $100 and you only spend $50, you save $50. So I earned the $100, and when I played in the tournament, I only spent $50. So the next week, I had another $50 in my bank. So I just built stamina by just playing a lot. I never lifted weights. I didn't do any of that. I started lifting weights in 1969 when I was 32 or 33 because I wasn't playing as much. So, and I always played against the best players that I could find. And one of the things that probably helped me more than anything psychologically is the first tournament I played in was Santa Barbara in 1956, and late Saturday night I drew Bernie Holtzman and Gene Selznick, which was the power team at the time. And my partner, Dick Davis, we beat him, put him in the losers bracket.
Wow.
So that, that gave me a huge bolt of confidence that I could, if I find the right partner to partner with, I could play against the best players at the time.
Question number 2 here. You played in a time period on the beach in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that has little or no video footage. So everything we hear about that time period is based on photos and stories of those who witnessed it. What can you tell us about the game during that era and what it was like playing during that time period?
Well, we didn't have very many tournaments to play in. When I first started playing, they had probably 4, maybe 5 tournaments, and it started out in Santa Barbara, and then there was one in Laguna Beach, and 2 in San Diego, and that was about it. So maybe 1 or 2 other, maybe one more. I can't remember what beach it would be, but it was all about the game and all about bragging rights. And it took me a couple of years to find a partner to play with. So every tournament I ended up playing with a different partner. So it was just a lot of fun. I mean, you go down to the beach and play all day and drive home and drive back up the next morning and play all day again. It was a magical time. The beach was a lot of fun. There weren't a lot of people on the beach. Now you go down to Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach. They got a bike path going through town, and it's just not the same. And there's nothing about the game that's the same as when I played.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's changed quite a bit. Getting back to what we talked about on question 1, pertaining to your relentlessness and intimidation and being merciless to all comers. I remember John Lee from Santa Barbara making a comment that when you got on the court with Ron Lang, it didn't matter who you were, he was going to take it to you. And is that a pretty fair assessment?
Yeah, I always felt that if I beat your brains in during the week, and every time you played against me, then on a weekend you wouldn't think you had a chance. So I really I didn't play many social games volleyball. I was out to beat you every time I walked on the court. And if I could beat you 15-1 or 8-0, that's what I was going to do. So that John's got a fair assessment of my attitude.
Yeah, I would say he does. You'd played with 2 of the greatest players to ever play the game, Gene Selznick, Ron Von Hagen. For those of us who never saw either of them play, tell us a bit about each and what made them such transcendent talents in the sport. Let's start with Gene Selznick.
Selznick first. He was probably the most talented player I ever played with. He could, in those days when I played, when we passed overhand. All the balls we passed overhand. Very little bumping. And very few bump sets. We got to all the balls because the passes were pretty good. He was a great defensive player. He was a great hitter. A great passer. Had a dominating serve. And in 1955, he was all-team first world indoors in Paris. So he was one of the best hitters in the world. And he already had developed a reputation on the beach. So after my first 2 years of playing on the beach, I played indoors with him. He got me to play with his team indoors in 57. And he just was an indomitable player. He wasn't a great... on the beach, he was not a great statistician, technically, on how to attack people. But he was so good, when he walked on the court, he expected to win, just because he was Gene Selznick. And we'd be playing on Saturday down State Beach, and he'd say, "Hey, Ron, I'm going to pass the ball in the net, see if you can get it out and make a set." So he'd deliver pass the ball in the middle of the net because you get bored with the game. And I think Gene's greatest contribution to volleyball is he's the one that, in my opinion, he brought the European game to the United States. He came back from the games, the World Games in 55 or 56, and he left Hollywood YMCA to start his own club team, and he built the team around the European game. 3 hitters across the front, all-time 6-0 system, 2-man block. That was his doing. So he was a real special beach player, but he was a better indoor player. And everybody says, or no, I don't say everybody, the general notion amongst the current crop of kids, or the current crop of icons, is Karch Karai was a better hitter, but it was a better beach player because he won more tournaments. Well, I don't agree with that. I think Gene could hit the ball better, pass with his hands, could set well, and was a better defensive player. Plus, Gene won 60% of all the tournaments he played in, and Karch won 44% of all the tournaments he played in.
Is that from that stat thing that you had sent me?
Second, or third 94% of the time, and Karch was first, second, or third 74% of the time. And these are all numbers I got off the Beach database.
Right. Is that the one?
So, in my mind, Gene, if he wasn't better, Karch wasn't better than him. So he was just a special player, a lot of fun to play with, and we win the losers bracket a lot because he wasn't trying. But we come back through the losers bracket and finish first or second. So.
Can you hear
Von
me?
Hagen is a little bit different. Von Hagen didn't have any one skill that was a standout, except his will to win. There are only 2 players that I played against, Mike O'Hara and Von Hagen, who would not quit. Ronnie could play for hours. And in side-out volleyball, that was really important. And he played as hard Monday afternoon at the beach against 2 single-A players as he did Saturday in the first round or Sunday in the finals. He always played 100%. And so when people ask me who's my favorite partner, who was the best partner I ever played with, I answer in 2 ways. I say Selznick was the most talented, and Von Hagen was my best partner. Because we had the same attitude. We're going to grind you in the ground no matter how long it took.
Can splice it
The next
together.
question was, how did Gene and I have why do we have such a heated rivalry with Brighton O'Hara?
Yeah. Love to hear about that one.
It really didn't have much to do with Mike Bright and me. It had to do with O'Hara and Gene. Both wanted to prove who was the most dominant volleyball player, both indoors and on the beach. And so Mike Bright and I were just sidekicks to the sideshow. And Gene and I was 21, 22, and Gene was 27, 28. And so Gene was the captain of the team, basically, in theory. So Gene wanted to serve O'Hara. So we served O'Hara all the time. Well, what we ended up doing is serving the guy who had the greatest will to win, and his partner was a better setter than O'Hara. So we played him definitely wrong.
So that was
probably ended up 50-50 on the tournaments we played together against one another. I don't know. Pretty close to that.
and that was more on Gene wanting to.
Ronnie and I never lost O'Hara in anybody because we served his partner. And you could grind down his partner. You couldn't grind down O'Hara.
Yeah, he was another one that you spoke at recently for his funeral. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I spoke at his funeral.
It says a lot about the family having invited you to do that.
Pardon me?
Speaks a lot, I guess, about you and the impact that you had with that rivalry, that the family would invite you for that.
Yeah, I had a lot of respect for Mike's game. We didn't socialize. I didn't know him socially. My wife knew his wife socially, but I didn't know Mike socially. But I had a lot of respect for his game and his competitiveness. I played 2 tournaments with O'Hara, one in 56 and one in 57, and we beat Bernie and Gene both times. And I tried to get him to play with me full time, but when I met him in 1956, he had just gotten out of the Army, and his partner at the time was a teacher named Don McMahon, and Don had sat out 2 seasons waiting for Mike to get out of the Army.
Okay.
And Mike felt he owed Don McMahon some loyalty for not playing, so he wouldn't play with me. So Gene started the indoor team and asked me to play on his indoor team, and which I did. And who knows where my career would have gone if I'd gotten Mike to play with me. I don't think I'd have been quite the volleyball player that I turned out to be.
Great story. 1968 Manhattan Open, Von Hagen and Lang versus Bergman and Rundle. It's been said that 3+ hour long match epitomizes the most perfect beach volleyball match ever played. Tell us about that timeless classic.
Well, we played the finals of the winners bracket. No game went. All the games were 17 to 19, 19 to 21, 15 to 17, something like that. One match lasted 3.5 hours.
Wow.
So then we sat down, and they played in the losers bracket. They won that match, and then we played them another 3 hours in the finals of the tournament, and they won that match. So the tournament director said, it's getting dark. And so the tournament director said, let's just call it a tie, and because we're not going to be able to finish the way you guys are playing. And it was probably the most perfect volleyball. I mean, everybody set well, everybody hit well, everybody had their A game. So I said, I thought we were the better team, so I said, let's play. And Rundle said, if we start, we're going to finish. I said, fine. So at 13-11, our favor, and Von Hagen says it was something like 9-2 or 9-3 or something like that. But I remember 13-11. I said, I can't see the ball anymore. I can't see it when you pass it, so I can't get to it to set it. So we lost 15-13. It was a great match. And the very next weekend, we had to go down to Laguna Beach and play. And they lost their first round match and went home. And Ronnie and I ended up winning the tournament. So they apparently didn't have the stamina to go 2 weeks in a row. But they were a great team. They were really a good team. They passed, set. They didn't have great defense, but they had great ball control.
You were a member of the first U.S. men's indoor volleyball Olympic team in '64. Can you share your memories about competing for the red, white, and blue, and who some of your teammates were, and some?
Well, my teammates were Mike Bright, Barry Brown, who was a basketball player from Stanford, Keith Erickson, who played basketball at UCLA and professional basketball, Bill Greenenow, Dick Hammer, Jake Hyland, myself, Chuck Nelson, Michael O'Hara, Ernie Sawara, John Taylor, and Peter Velasco from Hawaii. It was a real honor to represent the United States, but it was a disaster as a team because 3 guys on that team that were selected were purely political. They had no business being on the team. Jake Hyland from the Army didn't deserve to be on the team. He wasn't good enough. He didn't have the resume. Peter Velasco from Hawaii, they took him as a setter. He wasn't a setter, he was a hitter. And as a setter, when the ball's close to the net, you're supposed to go up and hit it, or make a play at hitting it. He always tried to get in a position to set it, would run into the net. So, I mean, the team was a totally political, manufactured group of guys. Most of them from Hollywood YMCA and our team. And the committee did not pick the best players. The committee picked the players that they could get away with picking politically. The team was not in shape. We were together 6 weeks when we ended up going to Tokyo. So it was a real honor to go and say I was a member of the Olympic team. But we really weren't a team. We were just 12 guys that got thrown together, and that was it. So if we, in 1968, they got the team and they sequestered the team for a couple of months, and they did better. And they've been doing that. Now they got a national team, and all the guys on our team had full-time jobs. So in '64, I ended up talking to the team captain of Hungary, and they'd been together 5 years, and we'd been together 6 weeks. And so half the team didn't like the other half because we've been competing for years against one another. So I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
Honored that I got the award, but not pleased with the competition, the way we competed. And I hated the coaching. The coach, Harry Wilson, was the man that constructed the team. And the first practice match we had, he said, here's the 6 players I want to start. You line them up the way you'd like to line them up, Ron. And I said, it's not my job. You do it. I'm here to play. Your next question was, who was the best team I ever competed against?
Yep.
And that's got to be Henry and Rundle. They both could pass. They both could set. They both could hit. They were a little better than average defensive team, and their serves weren't devastating, but they played side-out volleyball, and they could grind with the best of them.
Just like that Manhattan in '68, huh?
Yeah. You know, Larry said to me, we should have called that tournament a draw. And I'd like to say, yeah, but I'm the one that insisted we play, so I can't go back now
Till your eyes failed you.
No lights. And it was 8:30 or 9 o'clock, so
Wow.
you get the picture.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned how Henry had such power. What was it like digging one of his spikes when he unloaded?
There's no special feeling. You just try and get in a spot and try and catch the ball.
Did you overhand dig him a lot? From what I've been told, you had like incredibly quick hands. So all that training you got with those guys that drove you nuts when you were first starting to play must have paid off later on.
Both Gene and I dug a lot of balls with our hands. But if you think about it, if you try and catch the ball, you won't be able to catch the ball. The ball's coming at you 50 miles or 60 miles or however many miles an hour it's coming, you won't be able to catch it. And the reason you're able to dig some guys is because they tell you where they're going to hit the ball. They don't mean to tell you, but I can watch somebody play today, watch them warm up, watch them play a couple matches, and I can tell you where they're going to hit the ball. If a left side player's got the ball coming from the back court over his shoulder, he's not going to hit it down. He's got to hit it deep. And more likely, he's going to hit a deep angle.
Right.
Or deep center. And in the wind, I remember Ronnie and I played Rudy Sawara and Kurt Kilgore, two real heavy hitters. And we were playing them in San Diego. And Ronnie said to me, who are we going to serve? We're going to take side or serve, and who are we going to serve? I said, we're going to take serve, and we're going to serve the ball towards the water, both sides, because that's where the wind was coming. So they had to struggle to pass the ball because the ball was moving a lot with the wind, and they had trouble hitting the ball because they either didn't get to it or blew back from the net. So we won the first game pretty easily. The second game, they changed sides. One went to the right, the other guy went to the left. They had no idea what we were doing. So I always tell people, watch your opponents warm up, because they're going to hit their favorite shot to make the ball bounce. So in a critical situation, just go stand where they practice hitting. If they practice hitting ball straight down, go stand there. And you only have to take one ball to ruin somebody's confidence. I was playing with Gene Pfluger in that tournament against Henry Bergman and Richard Farrell. And we were serving Rich, and the ball was he was sitting right on top of the net. So I was about 6 feet from the net, and about 6 feet from the left sidelines. Pfluger was standing behind me. He hit the ball straight down, and I dug it. And Pfluger sent me and I put it away. And he turned to me and said, "How did you do that?" I said, "I just stuck out my arm." Well, the next 5 balls, Farrell hitting the net, hit out, he cracked. I dug his best hit, and he didn't know what to do. And that's the way most players are. So if you study the game, you can figure out the way someone approaches the ball. They're giving up certain parts of the court to hit in. So when you figure out which side of the person you're serving you want to serve, because they're going to approach the ball a certain way. And they're going to give up part of the court. At least they're going to give up a part of the court that they want to hit the ball into hard. They may be able to shoot the ball over there, but then you've always got a chance to run that down or make a play on it.
Right.
A hard hit ball, you better be there before the ball gets there to dig it.
And you've earned quite a number of accolades in the sport over the years. Over 50 beach wins, 3 indoor national championships, 9-time first-team All-American, California Beach Volleyball Association Hall of Fame, International Volleyball Hall of Fame, both indoor and beach, which, as far as I know, there's not many people that have that distinct honor. Which ones are you most proud of when you reflect back on your illustrious career?
I think how I would have to answer that I'm probably most proud of the accomplishments that got me the awards. Like, I won 55% of all the tournaments I played in over roughly a 20-year period. I was first, second, or third 92% of the time. It was, for me to play with Von Hagen for a year and a half and never lose a game against the best players that were around at the time, that was an accomplishment that had nothing to do with those awards. So I think that Selznick and I won 60% of every tournament we played in. Von Hagen and I won 59% of every tournament we played in. So those accomplishments created the awards. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are the things I'm proud of. I mean, it's nice. It's very pleasing to be elected to the International Indoor Hall of Fame, both at beach and indoors, and I'm the first person to get that honor. That's all well and good, but it's all the work. Bobby Knight said most players have the will to win, but most players don't have the will to do what it's necessary to do what's necessary to win. So, I told you before how much volleyball I played. I probably played more volleyball than anybody else in my time frame, because I was playing all year round, indoors, beach, and sometimes I did both, indoors and beach, depending on the season. So, to play for roughly 20 years, from 1956 to 1973, 17 years being competitive, I was first, second, or third 92% of the time.
Impressive.
So, that's the accomplishment that I'm most proud of, because I did what was necessary to do to win. And I had good coaching. I learned a lot from Gene. I learned a lot from Bernie Holtzman. I mean, Bernie had a couple of interesting comments. He said, never serve the ball in the net. Even if you serve it out, some goody bird's liable to put a hand out and touch it. Never hit the ball in the net. Hit it out if you have to. Someone's liable to reach out and touch it. And then the one I came up with, watch the guys warm up. Now, I don't know of anybody that says that, but it's an actual fact. I know I'll tell you another story about defense. Von Hagen and I are playing our first tournament in San Diego. And Bob Hogan is playing the right side, and he's the weaker of the two hitters. And we're serving him, and he hits one down the line, one down the middle, and one down the line, one down the middle. And Ronnie turns to me and said, let's switch sides. You try and dig him. So, first ball, he hit it right to me, I dug it. Von Hagen said, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything, I just stayed where I was. So, if you're aware of the way what your players are doing, watch other players in tournaments when you're not playing against them. Just watch what they do. And that'll give you plenty of information to play defense. Or all you have to do is divide the court in half and divide each half of the court in half and draw a line through the side. Take the middle half front to back and go stand on that mark and you'll big balls. You don't have to move. That's where most of the balls are going to go.
Good stuff.
So.
Rally scoring and the sport you see and witness today. What do you think about it?
What was the last? Actually, I don't like rally scoring because it takes conditioning out of the game. I mean, Dalhouser and his partner a few years ago came through the losers bracket, and they weren't warming. They didn't want to warm up in between matches. They said this in the press. We didn't warm up between matches because we didn't want to get tired. Well, hell, a whole match lasts an hour. We played one game lasted an hour, and we had to play 2 out of 3 to 15. So, I object to rally scoring. However, in order to get some TV play, they can't have a 3-hour match on the beach or indoors because volleyball is not big enough and doesn't draw big enough sponsors to make you pay for a TV station to have 5.5 hours of golf on, to have a match or 2 or 3 last 5.5 hours. It's just not doable. So I understand why they went to the shorter court. I mean, I understand why they went to rally scoring. I understand why they went to the block. In our day, if your little finger got over the net, that was a violation. So if you're playing for money, guys are blocking. You don't want someone to have a whistle blow on you just because you're barely over the net. So I understand that. But they don't let the guy set, very few guys set overhand. They all bounce the ball. It makes it harder for the hitter to hit the ball. Because if you can envision yourself standing up next to the net with your hands in the air, and you're going to hit the ball from your partner.
Right.
What do you see when you look at his hands? You see the whole court and everybody in it.
Good point.
So when you bounce the ball, you got to watch the guy's hands down below the net, and you barely get a glimpse of the opposition on the court. Makes it harder to hit the ball. So, plus they narrowed the court and took 2.5 feet off the depth and narrowed the court. And they put antennas up. We used to play, the ball had to go through the pole, between the poles. So you had to cover more court. So in essence, the rules changed have made it a big man's game. And just trying to stop the ball at the net rather than all the skills that volleyball players could have if the rules hadn't changed.
Right.
I don't like the rally scoring for another reason. I think if you're going to do rally scoring in the final game of a 5-set match or a 3-set match, the final game to 15, you ought to have to earn the final point. So if you're down 14-10, if you're up 14-10, you should have to dig a ball or they have to hit it in the net. Because you get a 3 or 4 or 5 point lead in today's scoring, the chances you catching the opponents, unless they completely fall apart, are negligible. So I understand how some of the rules affect the game. I believe it's taken some of the things that the players of the past used to do that were good skills that were hard to do,
Right.
and made it a big man's game. And that's just the way things are. Brother Rundle said to me at my birthday party a few months ago, can you think of any other game, major game, that has had many rule changes as volleyball has?
That's a good point, too.
So, and so the people that are comparing the players of today don't give the players of yesterday any credit. So the icon is Karch Karai, St. John Smith, Phil Bauhauser. Well, I got 5 players, that their winning percentage is better than all 3 of the guys I named, and they don't even get recognized. It's almost like saying, gee, do you know who Jim Brown is? Well, if you're a teenager playing football, you probably don't know who Phil Bauhauser is. Jim Brown is. Or do you know who Phil Rizzuto or Pee Wee Reese is? Probably not. Or Bill Russell. They're comparing apples to oranges and saying that the younger guys are better all-around players. And I don't buy that, but nobody cares what I think anyhow, so be it.
I did want to mention, off the cuff here, I had asked Kent Steffes a while ago in a message about a conversation you two had over lunch at some point back in the 90s. Do you recall meeting up with him for lunch and anything that happened during that conversation?
What was his name again?
Kent Steffes, Karch's partner there.
First name.
Kent, and then Steffes, Steffes, who
No, I don't remember it.
he had mentioned that you told him if you guys played that you'd be able to dig 7 out of his 10 hits.
Kent Steffes.
Yeah, Kent Steffes. Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, uh-oh. If you don't remember him, I'm in trouble. Go ahead.
Kent Steffes wanted to meet Ronnie and I. And so Kent Steffes and Chris Marlowe, Ronnie and I, Randy Niles, and Jim Mingus went to dinner. So we're talking, and I'm sitting next to him, and we're chatting, and it was a dinner, not a lunch. So he's telling me how that he's not very well liked on the tour. So I said, well, so what? I said, use it to your advantage. I said, I had an apartment 20 blocks from Serrano Beach. And when I was playing with Von Hagen, and nobody knew where I lived. I didn't party with anybody. I said, you're trying to beat their brains in. You don't care if they like you or not. All you care is you get to 15 before they do. So we were talking, and I said, if you had to hit the ball cross court to me, I could probably dig 40% of the balls you hit if you had to hit them cross court to me. And he said, what do you consider a dig? I said, something Ronnie can get under and say with his hands. So Kent says, Chris, Blank says he could dig 40% of every hit I hit if I had to hit it cross court. And Chris says, we may have something for TV here. I said, oh, you mean now? That's 40, 42, 43, something. 44. I said, oh, you mean now? Oh, hell no. Now I can only take 20% of what you do.
Oh boy. Yeah, Ken had made a comment about that and said it was interesting. He wanted to be able to connect with the legends of the sport, and he really appreciated getting a chance to meet and talk with you that day. So he wanted me to pass that along to you.
He was a real nice guy. I only met him that once.
Yep, he had a heck of a career
He got a
too.
pretty good record.
Yeah, he sure does.
Where did I have it? He won 48% of all the tournaments he played in, and first, second, or third 78% of the time.
I noticed Stokelos's name wasn't on there. Was that a misprint, or I think he did the math and he would have been in that top 10 category easily.
Who?
Randy Stoklos. You got the calculator out?
No, I just looked at the names on the list.
Yeah, I thought that was
I didn't have Randy down. Again, I tried to pick some guys that I knew when they played, but Randy said something real nice to me at the Hall of Fame inductions at the beach one time. He said, thanks for what you did for us on the beach volleyball side. Thanks for how you brought the game along. I thought that was very nice. He didn't have to say that.
Well, it's true.
And he probably would be in the top 10 percentage-wise.
Yeah, I think he crunched the numbers himself after I posted your figures on the old school group site, and he was up there, I think, as well, maybe even top 5. I don't recall exactly, but he was one of the all-time greats too, for sure. Before we wrap up here, what are you up to these days now, Ron, as far as family, reside, hobbies, interests, things you're doing?
I play golf. Not very well anymore. I had, in the last 6 years, I've had a couple of strokes and a couple of seizures, and I lost all kinds of distance. And after the seizures, your brain kind of freezes up, so you have to retrain yourself.
Right.
I've lost about 30 to 40 yards on all my clubs. So it's not as much fun to play because I can't reach anything in regulation anymore. And married, play golf, still work.
I just want to say, as someone that's a nobody from Wisconsin, getting a chance to speak with you on the phone here today, Ron, was, like I mentioned to you when I first called you, it's like a Green Bay Packer fan getting the chance to speak to an NFL and Packer legend like Bart Starr. So the fact that you took an hour out of your afternoon to talk to me and share this information is something I'll remember for a long time. So I really appreciate it.
Do yourself a favor and do the same thing with Von Hagen. He'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, you would pass his number on to me, and I'm going to arrange for that next. And I'll get this kind of put together on a video timeline with the audio. Sorry for the vocal issues and everything today, so I'll get it edited and put it together, and then I'll let you know when it's up on the site for you to listen to, and okay. I might put a couple pictures up with it from your career, and then play the audio to it. I think that's how it would probably work best.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for your interest.
Yeah, thanks for all you've done for the sport, and definitely you were a pioneer, and it was an amazing experience getting a chance to speak to you, and wish I could have seen you with my own two eyes.
Hope I talk to you soon.
All right. Likewise. Take care, Ron.